dankness, my old friend. Normies oppressing us again. Watching commies flee on live streaming. Farming keks with all this dank memeing. Fight the brainwashing that was planted a while in Yale. Fucking white male. Fighting for social justice.
In Chatelet, my dudes, and welcome to Polecat Cast number 113, Miss USA, the terrible, terrible Equalist, where our stealthy polecats ferret out the best feels, funnies, and what the fucks to discuss slam bam badger style. Strap yourselves in, lock up the bleach, unless you don't want to, then do it, faggot, and make sure that the only pills you plan on mass consuming are red ones. Welcome to the dankest timeline. Special thanks to the CIA people of color for tuning in. Today's Polecat panel consists of the big half of Big and Robot, Scott the Silverback Self-Aware Simian, Max Darrett, Simpsons kin, and definitely not that somewhat dopey yellow M&M, you know what I'm talking about, Polecat Punster and Pussycat Punisher Hannah, Dr. Randomer Cam, Panda, Puppet Master, and Long-Range Rhetorician, and me, your host, the Doge in Charge. Today we'll be discussing the following topics. From sea to shining sea, like Lady Liberty, she reigns over all she sees. She is beauty, and she is grace. She is queen of 50 states. She is elegance and taste. She is Miss United States. And she is not a feminist. Marvel's Black Lives Matter themed comic book featuring the all-black super team Black Panther and the Crew, I'm not making this up, that is the name of the fucking team, is a story set in a near-future Harlem, of course it is, that has been put under martial law by robot police officers who beat innocent civilians up for no reason. So why is this genius gem of a comic book story idea being cancelled? I mean, it's so smart and creatively done. Pili Hussein wanted to make her fortune prospecting for a precious stone that is said to be 1,000 times rarer than diamonds. But it's not allowed to women to be miners, so she decided to pretend to be a man so that she could take advantage of the opportunity. And accused of rape. Welcome to the patriarchy. According to a report, BioWare is putting the hit franchise Mass Effect on hiatus while they work on other projects. Is it possible that this decision comes as a result of recent product releases? Nah, it can't be that. And finally, our bonus story for the patron-only after show. Try to control yourself. Considering the widespread disgust and horror at the idea of period sex, I guess it shouldn't be any surprise that people are intensely grossed out by the concept of going down on somebody who is menstruating. After all, if they're too freaked out to put their penis in a vagina that's shedding its lining, they're likely going to get a bit funny about putting their mouth around one too. But according to this feminist website, we'll never move forward on our path to having the best sex lives possible if we wait for everyone on the planet to accept one sexual practice before we move on to another. So in the interest of pursuing great sex and orgasms, let's get real about going down to period town. I mean, do you love women or not? Anyway, if you would like to participate in our after shows either as an audience member or a participant, please consider becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. All right, before we get on to, well, actually, let's just get into the stories. But does anybody have any feelings about what I've read so far? Or should we just get into the stories? Let's just do that. Max, tell us about Miss America. Can you guys hear me? Hello? What's going on? Hello? Hello? There seems to be a problem. Hello? Shit. Hold on, guys. I'm sorry. Something's wrong. I gotta figure out what it is.
Yeah, where do we want to start? Anybody want to?
Jesus. Okay, can you guys hear
something
me?
interesting to them, or they'd like to go first?
I'm just laughing at the feminists going apeshit over.
By the way, the stream's still going on, but it's just Brian, and he can't hear us.
Oh my gosh! So
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Jesus Christ, I don't know what's going
Was
on.
the stream able to hear us?
No, it could not. If I can't hear
Oh,
you, the
really?
stream
Oh,
can't hear you.
wow.
So
Oh,
it
dang.
was just me, but we're good now. I don't. What the fuck is going on? Oh yeah, people are
Oh.
asking the music. That's a ice cream truck. Sorry. All right. So Max.
What?
No. Does it say? Is it professionally printed, or is it just spray painted ice cream on the side? You got to watch out for those.
Is it? Yeah, I was just about to ask. Is it yours? And are there like a lot of little kids nearby, like in your house, in your basement? What?
No, there's this ice cream truck music playing in the background outside, and
Right.
for whatever reason, it's people in the stream can hear. So they're like, "What is that music?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's the ice cream truck."
Hey
It's-
kids, I got candy in my van.
Let's all go running out! Ice cream!
Ice cream man! Ice cream man!
I got
Yes,
some
we are.
ice cream.
Quoting Eddie Murphy.
You ain't got no ice cream. You can't
Hey, man.
afford it. You can't afford it.
You're on
Because-
the
You gotta respect that guy, though.
You are on the
Was he-
welfare. Ice cream, ice cream, ice cream. Lick, psych.
Was he 18 when he told a reporter he wanted to be rich and famous by the time he was 21, and he did it.
Yep.
Okay.
But
so-
we're getting a little bit off topic here, though. Aren't
Yeah,
we?
no, I think we're good now. I can hear you. You can hear me. I don't know why the fuck that happened. I hope that the street, like, I didn't just do the intro and shout into the void, but it looks like people heard me. So
It's because we thanked the CIA. They got mad at us.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
We're not
Showing us
supposed to
who's
know we're
really in
here.
charge.
Okay. So let's go ahead and get into the stories. Max, you go first. Tell us about Miss USA.
Oh, yes. Dear Honey Badgers, dear fans listening to our show, how many times have you heard this story before? Just answer, honestly. A woman is asked if she considers herself a feminist and responds with some variation of, no, I'm an equalist / egalitarian / whatever. Quite often, right? Following this, legions of online slacktivists without any capacity for self-reflection criticize said woman for saying feminists are anti-men. That normally happens, of course. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure we've all heard about this before. So let's talk about it again for the 129th fucking time. Kara McCullough, I think that's how you pronounce her name, from the District of Columbia, normally abbreviated as DC, was crowned the new Miss USA last Sunday. Now, to all the gentlemen in the audience, Brian, Scott, Mike, I'm talking to you. Tell me if this doesn't sound like your dream woman, okay? 25 years old, naturally curly black hair, nuclear scientist, great bod, and is capable of individual thought by saying she's not a feminist, right? You know what I'm talking about.
I'm down.
Sign me up. However, naturally, because she decided to make her thoughts on feminism known, plus her thoughts on why healthcare is, in her view, a privilege, every newspaper in America had to write about this terrible slight against her gender. Now, if you type in Kara McCullough's name into Google, you'll find titles like the following. From Salon, Miss USA Kara McCullough thinks unemployed shouldn't have health care. From People, Miss USA Kara McCullough sparks controversy for her stance on healthcare and feminism. CNN, Miss USA, healthcare a privilege, not a right. New York Daily News from Linda Stasi. Brainiac Miss USA Kara McCullough says some really idiotic things. You get the point. Naturally, following all of this, Kara did a complete reversal on her healthcare stance the following day, saying that healthcare is actually a right. She seems to have stood firm on her equalist position, though. However, that hasn't stopped the professionally offended from reminding her that if it weren't for feminism, she wouldn't be where she is right now, of course. Now, fellow honey badgers, should we remind these SJWs that are tweeting at her online that if it weren't for Republicans, the slaves would have never been emancipated in America, and that they should, show some goddamn respect?
If it weren't for feminism, she wouldn't be where she is right now.
Finally.
Oh, hell no. Hell no. She's Miss America. Feminists have been attacking the Miss America pageant for years, for decades. They hate the Miss America pageant. They have hated the Miss America pageant all of my life. All of my life, they have called the Miss America pageant horrible things, all on the basis that it caters to male sexuality, which is, of course, the most evil thing in the world to feminists. But, feminists don't hate men, right? And so now they're mad because Miss America isn't a feminist. Really? You're really going to tell me that after you spent decades calling this exploitation, demeaning Miss America pageant contestants as bimbos and pieces of meat on the stage for men to drool over, women who the entire time have been college students, professionals, women going into STEM professions even early on in the pageant, demonized the men involved in the pageant and infantilized and objectified those women by ignoring everything about them except for the fact that they walk across the stage at one point during the pageant in a bathing suit. But they're supposed to have gratitude because you say things about men online, and it's supposed to be for their benefit. Yeah. I'll just sit here and hold my breath until they feel better about feminism.
Who wants to I venture a guess that maybe the reason why those feminists are not, making that outrage more obvious this time around is because the fact the woman that won is actually black, and they want to cheer that on instead of just saying, "Oh, this is terrible and sexist."
It could be that. Well, that's probably part of it. I think that they kind of trap themselves in their own sort of progressive stack. Like, there's things you can't like overtly criticize. And the thing is, what she's saying, I think that what most likely will come out of it is there will be responses like, well, if you care about equality, then you're a feminist. Sorry, you're wrong. And that'll be the end of it. But I still think...
I just want to point out, she's not the first black Miss America either.
Oh, no. I think,
right, no, I don't.
I think last year's Miss America was black too, or Hispanic or something like that. So I remember looking at a couple of them. I don't watch these at all. I think Miss America is not of interest to me, but not because I think it's, deplorable or whatever. I just don't have time. I didn't even know this is the funny thing. I just want to say this real quick. You guys can hear me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I didn't even know there was a Miss America pageant. I didn't even know that we had a Miss USA pageant recently, and it's only because of the outrage that I now know that it happened. And I was like, oh, all right, well, let me find out what this woman said. And then I found out what she said, and I was like, no, those don't seem too crazy thing, like that's not a crazy thing to say, or it shouldn't be, but it is, obviously. And then secondly, when I learned how smart she was, I was like, oh shit, that's pretty cool. Like, no, that was it. Normally I wouldn't give a shit about the Miss America pageant. I mean, when I was a kid, I watched it because it was like we only had television, but these days it's like, when all you have is TV, you'll watch any special that comes on when it's all you have in the fucking 1980s. So,
anything featuring hot women that you can get your hands on.
There you go.
It could be anything featuring anything. Like when you only had television and you didn't have cable, you didn't have the ability to watch things on demand, you would watch any special that came on because it was the only. It was like a new thing. It was like
there were 5 channels.
Yeah.
That was it.
There's another aspect to
choice.
this. There's another aspect to this because the Miss America pageant, at its heart, it's basically a talent show for scholarship money. That's basically what it is, okay? And it's when there was a time when it kind of had a monopoly on its genre of displays of talent, and it is specific to a limited set of only women. And now we have all these other talent shows on television and all these other forms of regular Joe entertainment. The regular person ends up in this position of being the entertainer, being the talent, to where it's not the same today to watch it. Like I had a family member who was in the Miss Ohio pageant. She never made it to Miss America. She never made it to Miss USA. She was in the top 10 more than once because the local pageants, you can be in different ones depending on your qualifications. If your university has a pageant, you can be Miss that university. If your local area has a pageant, you can be Miss local area and get to the Miss Ohio pageant. And so, I mean, I have some experience, not direct experience, but indirect experience with the pageant, with doing photography and so on, and for her and so on, and being there with my parents doing photography for her. And it, it's basically, it's a talent show that has entertainment on the side, and it has a good cause. It's got, college money. It's a good thing. But it's not, I don't think it has, it's not that it doesn't have the prestige, but I don't think it has the draw that it used to have as an entertainment thing for the public because of that. It's still competition between local areas for bragging rights, being able to say Miss America came from Ohio, Miss Universe came from came from America, and stuff like that. Is that there's still that attraction, but it probably does not have the viewership that it used to. And yeah, the what was that movie with Sandra Bullock that you're mentioning,
Miss
Matt?
Congeniality.
Miss Congeniality,
Yeah.
And she says it's not a beauty pageant, it's a scholarship program. Well, it's a scholarship pageant, and it's a talent show. There's like they have to do a talent, they have to be attractive, they have to have showmanship, and yeah, there's beauty involved as well. So, but it's entertainment, and it's being entertaining for scholarship money.
In before Tess Holliday tries to join the Miss USA pageant next year.
Okay.
Um,
And yeah, feminists have always hated it for the standards that it has too. They've hated it for the standards of beauty that it has. They've hated it for the behavioral standards that it has. There's been I think it was Miss America winners that have had either controversy or had their crowns taken away for not living up to the behavioral standards or not living up to their contract.
I remember there was Vanessa Williams. Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
She did a thing for
Doing the
Playboy.
Playboy.
Yes.
Yep.
And they took her crown away. And feminists got mad about that too. After you either get to say a thing is bad all around, and how dare you have it, and it shouldn't exist, or you get to criticize the rules and say, well, it should do it this way, you should do it this way, we want it to be this way, we have a stake in this. You don't have a stake in something if you think it shouldn't exist. And
Hannah, you're asking for feminism to be consistent. Please, come on now.
Actually, yeah, and I will
come on
continue.
Yeah,
I will
there you
simply
go.
say, they don't have a leg to stand on criticizing aspects of the pageant, criticizing individual things about the pageant, criticizing individual things about the ladies involved in the pageant, because they hate the pageant itself. If feminists had had their way over the last 50 years, there would be no Miss America pageant. They wouldn't be where they are because of feminism. There wouldn't be a pageant. They wouldn't get that scholarship. They wouldn't have that opportunity. And whether it's fair or not that opportunity is for women and not men. I mean, I know there's a Mr. America pageant and everything. It doesn't have the same draw that the Miss America. Yeah. There's Mr.
Really?
Universe and all that. Doesn't have the same draw. It doesn't get the same promotion. Doesn't have it's a step less or more than a step less in the eyes of the public. And as far as how it gets noticed and what kind of money it draws in.
It's basically like the women's NBA to the NBA, basically.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
And it's
Good fundamentals.
whether it's fair or not that's there. The fact of the matter is, feminism had nothing to do with the success of this pageant, and it has nothing to do with the success of the people involved. Zip.
Yeah.
They have no stake in it. And they have no bragging rights from it.
And
None.
That's funny that you make that point, because one of my biggest questions was, if a beauty pageant has girls win because of merit, right? They keep themselves in good shape. They take care of themselves. Yes, there is a genetic component as well, no doubt. But they also have to be talented, have great personalities, and be smart, was what we want. I mean, there are beauty pageant winners or contestants who have answered questions in the stupidest ways, and they live forever on the internet now. Like, forever. I remember there was the blonde that was asked something about... she was asked one of those, the final question, and she answered it in the dumbest way, and now she's immortalized for the way she answered the question. So you have to be, there is a meritocracy to winning a beauty pageant. So if that is the case, and if feminism despises meritocracy, which it does. It only appreciates merit when a woman who claims to be a feminist achieves something, and the reason is not because she achieves something, but because she's useful to essentially making feminism appear more valid. Then why would there even be a question? What do you consider feminism to be, and do you consider yourself a feminist? Why would that even be a question? And it's almost like a catch-22 question, because if you're a person that worked really hard to get to where you are, then and you know what feminism is, and you're not stupid, like this girl is clearly not stupid, then answering that question in the way that will not get you a bunch of shit is going to not feel right, because you're not answering it honestly in your own mind. But if you do answer it honestly, you're going to get a bunch of shit because you didn't essentially walk and line step with the other feminists that are expecting you to answer the way that they want. So why would that even be a question? That's not even a hard question. It's a stupid question, to be honest. You would think that these would be difficult questions that they would ask at the end, or at least something that is a little bit demanding, but these are just dumb.
Well, one of the things they do is they ask political questions and the alienating question just specifically for the sake of measuring the woman's ability to diplomatically answer those questions, still sound intelligent and not trip over herself, and keep that all within the short amount of time that she's given to answer the questions. In other words, to torture the contestants.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If I were in her position, I probably would have replied with, "Do you want to put me on a cross?"
Yeah.
There you go. But I mean, they ask questions about the education system. They ask questions about healthcare. They ask questions about all these different things. So it's not surprising that they did ask the question, and it's not really surprising that feminists freaked out over it either. It's just a matter of it's funny to watch feminists. How dare you reject us after we spent all this time battering your pageant with criticism that isn't fair. How dare you reject us?
Mm. All right. Well, I don't know, Scott. Did you want to say anything? I don't know if you've said much about it, or do you want to? Just,
I mean, I don't know that there's really much to be said, honestly, other than what you guys have. I mean, this is just like I mentioned earlier, feminism lacks an internal consistency. So, this is par for the course. Like they're gonna bitch if you do, they're gonna bitch if you don't. That's it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation with them. There's really no rational or consistent way in which they react to these sorts of things, and they're always going to find a problem because they're always looking for a problem. Yeah. I mean, to me, these kind of like you said, I didn't even realize this was a thing until it got brought brought up.
It's only because of the outrage that I even know that there was a Miss USA pageant, and now they're already saying, well, she better use her powers for the better good of feminism before the Miss Universe comes around. It's like, since when have people been begging Miss Universe to try to save the world through gender politics? Yeah. What?
Yeah, and why should she have to do anything outside of what she just wants to do on her own? She's not beholden to feminism or anybody else.
She's already doing...
I think that's incredibly presumptive of them to say that, well, she better do this. It's like, well, get the fuck out of here. How about she does what she thinks she needs to do, where she finds her causes and where she finds the best use of her time. How about that? How about feminism? You let a woman do what she wants, because isn't that what feminism is about empowering women to, find their own way in the world and create good, positive change? How about you do that instead of telling her what she needs to do?
Yeah.
Well, according to Anita Sarkeesian, no, it's not.
Oh,
feminism.
Right,
yeah. She has basically come out and said feminism owns women.
Yeah.
That we do not have the right to say no to feminism. Our consent for being used by feminism does not matter, and our lives should be shaped by what collectivist feminisms want. And even equity feminists do not have the right to say no to collectivist feminisms.
Yeah.
This is one of the big objections. Like, this has been the way feminism has been throughout the second and third waves, and I'm sure the first wave feminists were just as bad, but all of them have always acted like they are the arbiters of women's interests. Any women who disagree with them are wrong and are womening wrong, and they have the by God, given right to dictate the way women should live our lives, what we should want, what we should say we want, and so on, because they're women's advocates and they know better than we do. And that's always been one of my big objections to feminism. And as you're seeing that play out in this type of behavior where they, collectively gang up on some woman who has said, no, I'm not a feminist, I'm an equalist, and give her shit for it for however long they have enough breath to do it.
You know what, too? One more thing, real quick.
Yeah.
I bet if you took the credentials of any of the feminists that are going after this woman and you put them next to hers, it would be a slam dunk in favor of Miss USA. I have almost no doubt whatsoever that her credentials are just, it's like, come on, dude. She's a nuclear fucking scientist. Seriously?
Yeah, right.
Really?
Or at least
I think she's got enough agency on her own to know what the fuck she's talking about. She doesn't need these fucking, social sciences people or whatever the fuck they are telling her what to do. Get out of here with that shit.
As an individual, she's doing more to set a good example for what women should aspire to than the entire collective.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think Mike.
That's another fit.
Mike was trying to chime in earlier. I think were you?
How,
Mike,
how dare that woman go into STEM without them?
Mike?
Well, I could summarize for you. 10 years ago, the stupidest thing feminists had ever heard was, and I quote, I personally believe that US Americans are unable to do so because some people out there in our nation don't have maps. And I believe that our education, like such as South Africa and the Iraq, everywhere like such as, and I believe that our education over here in the US should help the US, or should help South Africa and should help the Iraq.
And such.
Whereas now, the dumbest thing feminists have ever heard is, as a woman scientist in the government, I'd like to transpose the word feminism to equalism. Read.
Yeah, exactly.
And for those who didn't know, I believe that was the exact
that
quote.
Was the girl.
That was Miss South Carolina, I believe.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
that was the Miss Stage Fright quote.
yeah.
We need maps. Okay, so
we need more maps.
More maps. More maps.
I'll be honest, though. If you stuck me in an evening gown in front of a bunch of judges and asked me a question I wasn't prepared to answer, I would probably sound worse. Mm-hmm. You would probably get nothing from me, but especially if there was a auditorium full of people staring at me. But that's why I don't. That's one of many reasons why I don't do pageants, and never did.
Well, she was Miss South Carolina. So, moving.
That's shade, Brian. That's shade.
I am not throwing shade. It's more like an underhanded toss.
Well, there you go. Okay.
Mr. Scott, let's move on to the next story. Would you tell us a little bit about the crew? God damn it.
Well, Brian, you know that the crew is through. That is the word on the street.
The crew is
apparently.
through.
It seems that not even social justice warriors want to buy Marvel's Black Panther and the Crew, which is set to be canceled after only 2 issues. The comic, which features popular black superheroes such as Luke Cage, Storm, and Black Panther, tells a story set in future Harlem where the police force has been replaced by private security contractor-controlled robots that seem to mostly target blacks. The aforementioned superheroes take the fight to the corrupt system while learning about prominent figures in the civil rights movement. But as with other social justice-themed comics, there just doesn't seem to be the market for them right now. Ta-Nehisi Coates, the comic's creator, states the comic will finish its current 6-issue run before ending for good, with poor sales being cited as the reason. This shouldn't come as a shock to anyone who's been following Marvel Comics for the past few years. These stories of painfully forced diversity and social justice narratives just aren't profitable. A message echoed by Marvel's Senior Vice President of Sales, David Gabriel. Hopefully the rest of Marvel Comics can figure this out as well, at least if they want to retain what remains of their core audience.
All right.
And could they have said it anywhere else besides Harlem?
No.
Well, I mean,
Max.
black people only exist in Harlem.
Yeah, gotta drive that point home, Max. You gotta drive it home. It was either gonna be Harlem. It was either gonna be Harlem Oakland or southern, like the south side of Chicago. Those are the only places where this happens.
Yep.
All the black people outside those areas are not as black as the black people in those areas
Right.
because politics.
But
why wouldn't the Black Panther move from his home in Wakanda to Harlem?
I mean, Wakanda
What?
is the most technologically advanced nation on the world, and then you just want to go to Harlem.
Exactly,
Yeah,
yeah.
that makes sense.
well, even
The
though
concept in and of itself just made such sense from the beginning.
Well,
It was
even though
very,
Black
very
Panther
solid.
does live in, as you said, the most rich and technologically advanced country in Marvel's fictional universe, he's still oppressed. So,
There you go.
And he's
Even
fucking
though,
royalty, too.
even though he runs, and
he may be a prince,
entire
but
country.
he still may be pulled over
Yes.
because driving while black, and not because
Yeah.
he's doing it in a fucking cat suit.
Exactly.
Well,
No, this is just more of Marvel wrapping up their social justice era of comics. This was a foregone conclusion. They've been saying this for a few months now. Gabrielle, I'm not a real big fan of David Gabrielle because he said some really dumb shit over the last 3 or 4 months. Just really tone-deaf things like blaming fans and saying that they don't want female characters. It's been proven because of the sales, and basically saying that those things are mutually exclusive. Obviously, the sales mean that they don't. If they don't sell a book with a woman in it, it means people don't want female characters, which is fucking total nonsense. The problem is these writers that have been working for Marvel are terrible. They're not good writers, and they're ham-fisted, and they're pushing these narratives, and they're pushing out the fan base. They're snubbing their nose at the people that helped create Marvel and turn it into what it is today. And people, they spoke with their wallets. They said no more, and so be it. But this should be a wake-up call to Marvel to write good stories and not just try to beat people over the head with ideology, because it doesn't pay. It just doesn't pay. So. So be it. Hopefully they learn this lesson very well and they can move forward and actually get back to some good storytelling.
yep.
Can I just add that the whole premise for this story kind of sucks right off the bat because the main villain, from what I understand, is they created a bunch of robots that go out and try to kill black people, apparently. Well, why are you going to do that with Luke Cage? Because the guy's bulletproof, so he doesn't have to worry about being shot by the cops. And Black Panther, he's got a suit made out of vibranium, which can deflect bullets. So why are they going with those two characters?
It's just stupid. Storm controls the fucking elements. It's stupid because it's lazy writing. They basically, they didn't even point this. Oh no, they did point it out in the thing. This is a really cringy piece of propaganda. And I know that propaganda as a word gets thrown around a lot and people overuse. No, this is blatant. This is a chick tract. They are fighting robot police officers that look like they're wearing police officer uniforms, but they're robots, and they beat up, local black civilians that aren't doing nothing at all. They're just being good boys or whatever. And while the superheroes who are fighting stuff that is way below their weight class, robot cops, while that's going on, they're learning about various figures of the civil rights movement. It sounds like,
it sounds so contrived.
It's really contrived, but have you ever, it's like a chick tract, which we've said this before.
Yeah.
Have you ever, picked up I don't know, it's almost like the kind of comic that your history teacher from the 6th grade wrote up so that you could learn about a piece of history through the things that you like. It's like a you remember the G.I. Joe PSA?
Knowing is half the battle.
Yeah, the PSAs, or the He-Man ones, or they were these cringy fucking little bits that would teach you a life lesson. It's like they took that and made it an entire story.
Yeah.
And it's just terrible.
And you know what? And back in the civil rights era, somebody else ran into a very similar situation than this. And we learned a great lesson today, didn't we, Bobby and Joey and Jane? It's like, oh God, no, get out of here, dude.
Yeah, it's just
so
really
contrived.
cringy. And it's extremely it's really condescending. People aren't stupid. And that's, I think, the main reason why the readers are probably not tuning in is not just because the stories are bad, but because it's insulting to their intelligence. We don't need this like ham-fisted approach of talking about police brutality done this way. I mean, if you want to talk about an abuse of power, which maybe you feel that way about the way things are, or maybe not, you can talk about it in a way that everyone can relate to and recognize when they see it. You don't have to like direct, like it's just so on the nose. It's so on the nose, and it's beyond that because there's a lot of exaggeration. There's a lot of misunderstanding about the way things have actually gone down. There's a lot of misinformation that's being circulated in here too, which is why it borders on manipulative and propagandist, and it's insulting. I mean, I think most people don't want to read about this shit. So no wonder your sales are in the tank.
You kind of got to understand where the social justice mentality comes from in terms of getting ideas across to people. They do not think of the regular person as somebody who is intelligent and wise enough to make their own decisions. So they don't think of you as somebody who can look at information, analyze it, and come to a conclusion that is a reasonable, rational conclusion without them spoon-feeding it to you and telling you what you should think of it. So they just expect people to accept that. They think, well, people are that dumb, so obviously, hey, when we do this, when we hand down our beliefs from on high, our narrative from on high, and everybody's going to have to accept it because we're right. They're too dumb to figure out, this stuff for themselves, and so they're also too dumb to object to it. And it blindsides them every single time for some reason when they figure out that regular average Joes are not stupid.
Yeah, and part of it, even more nefarious, though, is, and I think you kind of touched on a little bit, is that I don't know that they're. I think the reason that they do this whole spoon-feeding kind of ham-fisted way of writing things is because they don't want you to come to a natural conclusion about things. They want to tell you how to feel about stuff. Because, like you said, they sit up on high and they have their opinions, and they want you to believe them. They want you to believe what you're told, listen and believe, basically, which is a wonderful common refrain from Anita Sarkeesian and her types of folks. They don't want you to actually just see these situations, use your own brain power and ideas and experiences to kind of ingest it and take something from it. They want to be like, this is bad, you need to know it's bad, and it's bad because of this, and if you think anything else, you're fucking wrong and you're a Nazi. Basically that's what it boils down to.
Are you on the right side of history, or do you disagree with me?
Think it for yourself is bad, okay?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Independence is bad.
Wizard of Cause, Nick, he's in the chat, and he said something that pretty much mirrors what my point I was trying to get across. He says, I like this storyline more when it was the X-Men fighting the Sentinels. That's exactly my point. When it was the X-Men fighting the Sentinels, you could see it, and you could say, okay, this is a problem. The crux of what is being said here is that, bigotry is bad in general, and the Sentinels are a tool of that, right? You can talk about the same thing and do it in a way that keeps people's interest. The Sentinels are cool. These guys look like straight up robot cops wearing uniforms. It's just dumb. It's so dumb. And it's just,
and it's divisive too because it's just these black superheroes.
Do you remember? Yeah,
with the X-Men, it was everybody was involved because it was an issue that affected everyone.
Yes,
and I get it. There's I understand that there's a focus on problems with police in black communities. I get that, but that stuff doesn't just happen in black communities. It happens all over the place. I mean, I forget what the statistics are, but people of all colors are being killed every day by cops. I believe that minorities were actually among the lowest number, of the total murders caused by police. So, this is like you said, with the X-Men, everybody is affected by it.
Everybody. If you want to talk
about, not a one-way thing either. I mean, cops of all colors are getting killed by criminals too.
Yeah.
So there's the issue that we have is people want to make this literally a black and white issue and figuratively a black and white issue, and it's not. And in doing that, making it all about race and all about authoritarians versus the citizen, they are losing a lot of the nuance that leads to that conflict. And putting it in a comic book doesn't eliminate it in real life. No matter how hard they want it to be, an easy to fix narrative. There's not a cookie cutter solution to this. It's not a cookie cutter problem. And treating it that way, no matter where or how they treat it that way, is only going to delay any approach that could lead to reform and a reduction of the deaths.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget that Black Lives Matter as a group is not the same as simply advocating for things like, honest policing, fighting against corruption, and actually giving a shit about the black community. They're not the same. Black Lives Matter is run by feminists, intersectional ones that are using the deaths of men to further their own goals. I mean, even in this comic, they have like a sample. Misty Knight, who's a female detective superhero, is getting blasted by these cop robots, and her female friend is also getting shot, and that's actually meant to be sort of allegorical. But when you look at what's actually happening in the real world, it's not women. It's men that are the victims in these situations. No. So
they also need to change their name from Black Lives Matter to Black Lives Matter unless they wear blue.
Yeah.
Because they don't give a rat's ass if black cops die. In fact, they've encouraged some of the attacks, direct attacks on black cops that have happened. So the idea, in fact, they've chanted the desire for dead cops. And they didn't say dead white cops. They just said dead cops. There's a lot of black cops. And those guys matter just as much. Not that white cops don't matter, but it's very hypocritical to say Black Lives Matter and then turn around and encourage people to shoot at the cops, even if they are black.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I guess that was something else I wanted to say, but I can't remember it now. So I guess we can move on. It's just, hopefully, this is what's going to have to happen. The market's going to decide, and Marvel's going to have to change. But they got to stop listening to these people, these activists turned artists that are trying to tell them how things should be done. Because it's hurting their bottom line, and
Thank God.
Nobody wants that. So.
Thank God this stuff is not affecting the movies and the TV, much.
Yet.
Yeah.
Yet.
Yeah.
Well, unless Kevin Feige dies or something, I think the movies will probably be okay, because he's the guy that's got he's behind the wheel. He's the one driving the course of all the film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and he's obviously, he knows what he's doing. And he hasn't been affected by it yet, but still, I think he knows what's up. He knows what's going on.
And Ike Perlmutter, the guy who runs all the Marvel TV stuff, if I'm not mistaken, is actually a Trump supporter. So there you go.
What? That's crazy.
Oh my God.
Okay, well, let's go into the next story. I'll do the reading for this one. This is a weird one. So, okay. Woman acted as a man to get work until she was accused of rape. A recent piece on BBC Magazine tells an amazing story of a Tanzanian woman who made a fortune acting like a man until she was accused of rape. Pili Hussein was one of 38 children. Her father had 6 wives. She ran away from an abusive husband at 31 and went looking for work in a small mining town. Pili wanted in on the money being made mining for a rare violet blue gemstone called Tanzanite. Unfortunately, women were not allowed in the mining site. Pili transformed herself into Uncle Hussein, she told the BBC. I acted like a gorilla. I could fight. My language was bad. I could carry a big knife like a Maasai. Nobody knew I was a woman because everything I was doing like a man. That's her quote. After a year, she struck it rich, uncovering 2 clusters of the gemstone. She bought new homes for her family and eventually started her own mining company. One day, a local woman reported that she had been raped by miners. When the police came, the men who did the rape said, "This is the man who did it," and I was taken to the police station, Pili says. At the police station, she revealed her secret, asking the police to find a woman to physically examine her to prove that she could not possibly be responsible. Her fellow miners were hard to convince, as was a future husband when most of the town were accustomed to regarding to her as a man. They didn't even believe the police when they said I was a woman, she said. However, Peely did eventually succeed in finding a husband, and she started a family. Today, Peely owns a mining company with over 70 employees. The 3 female employees work as cooks, not miners, as Peely explains. Some women wash the stones, some are brokers, some are cooking, she says. But they're not going down into the mines. It's not easy to get women to do what I did. Just
Wait
as
a minute.
As a final comment here.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Tanzania, if you don't know, it's a third world country. So the fact that she was able to pull this off is actually kind of amazing. So Scott,
crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, you mean to tell me that women make false allegations of rape? I don't know, man. This might be a bridge too far. I'm having trouble. Trouble swallowing this pill.
I want to clarify something. It's not entirely known whether or not the rape claim was false. It was just that this woman was the one that was investigated, and the miners that worked there, they pointed the police in her direction. So I don't know the reasoning for it. It could be that the woman was genuinely raped, and the miners wanted to throw her, like the rapist,
Uncle Hussein under the boss.
Yes, or
her story could be true. Her story that the men who did the rape pointed the finger at her could be true. It could be false. It could be she may really believe they did it because another woman said they did, but really they didn't. But we don't know. So, but yes, women do make false accusations, and you know, it's not just in countries where a woman has disguised herself as a man that the wrong person gets accused. Sometimes when a rape did happen, the FBI investigated its own history with that, with regards to DNA testing, and they discovered in their investigation that in the cases they investigated, 1 in 4 of the alleged perpetrators turned out to not be the guy that committed the crime. And that's where they had DNA evidence, so there was definitely sexual contact. Whether it was consensual or not isn't really just determined in that research. But at the very least, in 1 in 4 of those cases, the wrong guy was accused. So even if a situation happens where a woman has been raped and a man is accused, he could be falsely accused even if she's not lying.
Right. Okay. See, the way I was reading it was that she had specifically accused this person of raping her. Okay. So it could have been somebody else, but then they pointed the finger at this person.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
But it's they're unfortunately, and I don't know if it's because the people who wrote the story, because we looked at a couple different sources. I don't know if it's because they didn't do enough digging, or if it's because the identity of the rape victim and like other details of the case were made confidential. So, but it's basically we cannot determine right now.
Litigation.
Yeah, we can't determine whether or not she was if a rape actually happened, or if it did and the police just were on the wrong trail of the wrong suspect. Clearly.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, unless the girl was, unless it depends on what your definition of rape is in Tanzania. Like if, let's say, it wasn't with a penis, but it was with an object. Feasibly that could happen too. Mm-hmm. So, but
I would find that somewhat less likely given the situation.
Yeah,
but I could be wrong. I very well could be wrong. But yeah, it seems somewhat less likely.
True. Well, anyway, I don't know. It's a really interesting story for a couple of reasons. I don't know if you guys knew this, but this stone called Tanzanite, it's actually several times more expensive than diamonds, and it's really pretty. It's a purple stone. The fact that she was able to start her own company in a country like this, which I've been corrected by Wizard of Cause, it's not third world country. That's not PC. It's economically challenged. The fact that she could do that as a woman too, I think that says something. So, and she
pulled this off for a pretty considerable amount of time to be able to get to where she is.
Mm-hmm.
just by acting like a gorilla, apparently.
What?
Using bad language.
Her words, guys. Her words. I'm just saying. Don't hold this against us. She said
You'll
that.
see that from. I think you'll
Don't
see that
hold it
though from
against me.
women. You'll see that from women in areas where women and men's gender roles have them at odds with each other over what constitutes refinement and refined behavior. The whole ladies and gentlemen thing of old, like women who were considered ladies and acted like ladies and everything would look at men who did work like this as almost animals. And so I'm not surprised to hear that kind of language from her. And it's not to say that it's not sexist, but that's where it comes from. That difference in how she's expected to act and taught to act, and what she's expected to appreciate and taught to see as refinement versus how they live. And it's kind of remarkable what she says at the end here. Some women wash the stones, some are brokers, some are cooking, she says, but they're not going down into the mines. It's not easy to get women to do what I did. And that's a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just that she wasn't allowed. This is not a job that's just difficult. It's not a job that just takes extra muscle. It's not a job that's just inconvenient or uncomfortable. Mining has life-threatening dangers in it. You're dealing with holes in the ground. You're dealing with the potential for rock slides. You're dealing with the potential for being down in the ground and discovering a hole that you couldn't see that goes down far enough that if you fall in it, you die. You're dealing with gases that can suffocate you. You're dealing with all kinds of situations like that. And it's not just about being physically strong or having the emotional constitution to deal with dirt and nastiness and uncomfortable temperatures and cramped spaces and cutting your fingers up working with rocks and stuff like that. It's you are risking your life when you do this job. And there's another thing that goes on. I don't know if people are familiar with the blood diamonds issue, but if this stone is more valuable than diamonds, then I am certain that issue applies here as well. In countries that we politically incorrectly refer to as third world countries, there are gangs that attack mining operations and take them over. And they maim and kill people who don't cooperate because the money is there. They want the money and they take that over. They do the same thing with any product that has a high profitability. Hell, in South America, it's done with avocados. Like, you can grow avocados in California, but there are blood avocados.
Mm-hmm.
Cocaine is a blood plant product. This is all the kind of thing that men face in these professions.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not surprising that it's not easy to get women to do what she did, because they don't have to.
And boys.
A woman's got to be, boys. And in fact, if you look up how cocoa is processed, you'll find that there are boys in South America cutting open the pods with machetes, and sitting around with men cutting the pods open with machetes, and there are severe injuries that can happen with this if you don't know what you're doing, or you're not careful, or you just have a bad day. So it's not easy to get women to do this, because women have ways out of it. Women can marry men who will support them. Women can use the woman card to say, I don't have to do that. I'm pretty, or I'm reproductive. You have to pamper me, and this is one of the reasons why when I hear about things like the wage gap, I go off. Men who do stuff like this because women don't, and somebody has to, deserve respect for what they do, and they deserve whatever hazard pay they get. And the idea that, say, the woman washing the stones, or women who are brokering, or women who are doing the cooking, in the U.S., women would complain that they're not getting as much as the miners. Fuck them. They don't deserve as much as the miners. And anybody, feminist or not, who says otherwise can kiss my ass. If I let you.
Oh, there you go. Well, she did. This is the cool thing, though. Despite everything, she did manage to start a company with over 70 employees. She met a man, found him, they got married, and now she has a family of her own. And as I understand it, lots of kids. They are productive in this country. Productive. She has lots of kids. I'm telling you. So,
Today's a great show for awesome women.
She's got a
These
really
are
big
awesome women.
family.
And-
They're very productive. They're
yes.
hard workers. They're doing great. They're going to be wonderful.
Yes, the best women.
Huge.
That's
It's huge.
Tremendous.
Huge family. Tremendous.
Bigly. Certainly a different character from Miss USA, but I'm gonna just move on from that, and we can go on to the next story. The last story, Scott.
Yes.
Um,
Mass Effect. Oh boy.
oh yeah.
From the game studio that brought you internet famous racist Manveer Air comes Mass Effect Andromeda. Oh god, after a controversial debut and a very rocky first few weeks, Mass Effect Andromeda can't seem to catch a break. Even after the initial round of patches, gamers still regularly report bugs and glitches, some even insisting that the game plays worse once patched. All this negative press mixed with lackluster review scores and a low amount of physical copies sold has given EA much to think about in terms of the future of the series as well as the future of Andromeda's primary developers, BioWare Montreal. Despite EA management voicing support for the series and the studio behind it, Mass Effect as a series has been put on hold for the foreseeable future. This, coupled with BioWare's new IP being pushed back until April of 2018 and the shift of BioWare's employees over to EA Motive, presumably to work on the new Star Wars Battlefront title, spells out an uncertain future for the company. With no major DLC or season pass planned for the game, those who remain at BioWare Montreal continue to work on future patches and multiplayer content for Andromeda, or as the as yet unnamed new IP planned for next year.
This story depresses me so much that I can't even create adequate facial expressions.
Is your face too tired, Matt?
Yeah, I got permanent Mona Lisa expression on right now.
There you go. Yeah, this is like I said at the beginning here. I added that little tasty bit at the front end. This is BioWare Montreal. This is the same studio that internet or Twitter famous reverse racist Manveer Air comes from.
Just racist. Just racist, Scott. There's
well,
no,
I know. I'm just.
I know.
I'm
but,
using their language.
Yeah.
But this is something that I called a long time ago. Well, maybe not on this show particularly, but among friends and stuff as we talk about these sorts of things as we're gamers. I was like, this was an inevitability. When you have a studio head that openly supports somebody that is publicly racist and is like, I'm okay, he can say whatever he wants, yada yada yada, I fully support him. When you have a culture like that, when you have a studio that works for the larger company EA, that to me shows a gross dereliction of management duties or managerial talent. And when Mass Effect Andromeda came out, we saw very clearly that the people that are running the show over there don't know what the fuck they're doing. Well, maybe not they don't know what the fuck they're doing, but they are not very good at their jobs. So this was a foregone conclusion in my mind. I've thought this for years now, actually, and I think it is wonderful that people aren't buying this stuff. That when stuff like this happens, they speak with their dollars and they don't invest. They don't just say, "Well, fuck it, we're gamers. I need my gaming fix. I love Mass Effect. I got to get my Mass Effect fixed." They're saying, "No, this is not good enough. I will not support this. You cannot have my money." And I will be heard if in no other way than not giving you $60 to $180, depending on which version of the game you got. So, this is great. I think this is wonderful that people are actually taking a stand and saying, "Nope, not gonna do it. Not gonna fucking do it."
Although there were some reports I thought that said that the reason they did it doesn't have anything to do with how poorly received Mass Effect was, at least at first. Like I know that Because there's it's still no, I know, but I'm saying that there exists an argument. Like I didn't play any of the Mass Effect games, and so I don't really have an investment in this at all.
Right,
I'm still, I'm like not even halfway through Metal Gear Solid yet. I'm sorry, Max, but I'm working on it. But
Jesus Christ!
I know.
Hey, don't you dare, Max!
No,
you haven't
but
watched Tombstone. Don't you fucking?
Yeah, you have to watch Tombstone. No, but
Yeah.
Allow me to explain myself. I was working on it, and then Overwatch came out, and I just stopped playing everything else. But I'm getting back into it anyway. I just finished Dark Souls 3, so I'm just way behind on shit. Thanks, Blizzard. But anyway, as I was saying, there are some who have made the argument that the reason isn't the facial animations, although that's cringy and hilarious. Not just facial animations, but animations in general in Mass Effect. Right. And there were some that made the argument that it's a diversity hire, and that's why this happened. Also entirely plausible. And of course, there's the man via ear thing. But there are also people who still like the game. There was somebody in our chat just now that said it's not that bad, and there were plenty of people who gave a good review. So I don't really know what the truth is. All I'm saying is that I agree with what you're saying. However, there are people who have made arguments against that in a way to say, well, it's not that bad or whatever. And I just don't want to. I don't want to
this or that situation. There's a lot of things.
I don't want to leave that out. Is all I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's not me. I'm not even really playing devil's advocate because I don't have a stake and I don't really have all the info, handy. But
no, you're being fair-handed though about it, and that's fine. I mean, and I totally agree with that too. But I mean, and like I said, not to say that everything I said is like concrete and this is the reason why it happened, because there are a lot of things that went into this. There are a lot of different things that went into this. The writing was bad, the animations were bad, the game is glitchy. There's a lot of blame to go around. But like my when I look at the totality of everything that happened, it all comes back to management. It comes back to poor managerial culture there. So that's my supposition.
I agree with you on this for sure. I think that people should hold developers to the highest possible standard for the whatever the industry standard is, especially if they're going to be shelling out their hard-earned money for it. I think they should, because if they say, well, this is good enough, then they're going to keep getting mediocre products. And so, I mean, I can't tell anyone what to do. Do whatever you want. But I agree with that sentiment. The idea that people should be held to a really high standard, and the fact that I've been getting back into, some games that I think are extremely good is, it's easier for me to see the flaws in other stuff that's supposed to be as good, or at least AAA as well.
Yeah, when you see something done really, really well.
Yeah.
And it's something that like Overwatch, for instance. It came out. When it came out? It was only $49, so it was even less than a AAA title usually is. And when you see something like that succeeds so brilliantly, that works so well, and granted, they've had an amazing amount of support with updating and tweaking characters on all that sort of thing when problems arise. But when you see something done like that, that is done so well, and then you see what happens with Mass Effect or something else, another game in that area, it's just like, oh, this is what it could have been. And here's another thing to think about, too. Andromeda was under development for 5 years. Yeah. 5 years. And they put out this buggy, fucked up game after 5 fucking years. To me, that spells managerial negligence.
Didn't they do that with... That also happened with one of the Assassin's Creeds, or maybe a couple of them? I remember the Assassin's Creed had that problem. Well, when it came out, it was like a buggy mess. That was
Unity. Unity, and no, those are on a 2-year dev cycle, because they're popping them out through I think 2 or 3 different studios every year annually.
Yeah.
So,
ugh. You see that?
That was a fucking mess, though. That was an absolute atrocity.
Yeah. So that's the thing. And here's one other thing too. I don't. This isn't really a judgment on Mass Effect, because I'm talking about gameplay, and. But when I guess it's only a little bit related, because BioWare appeared to have an interest in, at least to some degree, hiring people based on quotas, because the person they brought on to do the facial animations was someone who was very new, had never worked on a game of this caliber before. I think she was maybe right out of college or something, and so she had just gotten trained. So there are people who basically have said, well, they hired her because she's a woman or something like that, right? And that might be true. I don't. Huh?
There's certainly the appearance of that.
Yeah, that's how it looks, right? And so the reason why I brought it up is because it seems like there's a lot of focus with developers that make these big titles, and this could also this is what I think anyway, that there is a focus on trying to tell these sort of almost like these stories. There's a focus on telling stories, and then basically getting people immersed in the narrative, immersed in these sort of social interactions and whatnot. And I've noticed that the games that, in my experience, turn out to be the strongest and the ones that I remember the most, they're not necessarily ones that don't have stories, but they're the ones where the focus is the gameplay, and the focus is how fun it is, and like what you can do in it. So I will use Metal Gear as my example, because not because Metal Gear lacks in story. Obviously it has one, and that's always been like a big attraction to the franchise. But if it didn't have the extremely solid gameplay that it has, and with this new one that I'm currently playing, it's not new, it's been out for a few years, but with the last one that I'm currently working through, I enjoy playing it because I enjoy the gameplay, because I enjoy their attention to detail, because there's little things that they do that keeps me thinking, oh, that's fucking cool. And it's not, it's not this kind of like corny storyline. It's not like this like sort of cringily written thing with a focus on story. Wizard of Cause made a mention of a game called what's that one? Beyond the Two Souls, the one with Ellen Page.
Yeah.
And oh god, I bought it because the thing is, I bought that game because I liked the one that preceded it. The Heavy Rain, right? Press X to Jason. But I did enjoy Heavy Rain because I thought it was a unique experience. However, I found that once I finished it, I didn't want to play it anymore, or at least I never went back.
There's not much replay value there.
Right. Well, there is actually. There's lots of different ways it can go. However, the thing is, what you're doing is this kind of interactive storytelling, and with like slight gameplay elements. And while I certainly think that there's an audience for that, and it's totally can exist, it's a bit kind of like the Telltale games, I guess, right? They have a heavy focus on narrative. Beyond Two Souls was, I was very disappointed. Like, I was mad at this game. And I was like, I would have normally liked it. Like, I would have normally given everything a shot. But I think that this over-focus on narrative is missing the point. What I think makes games really fun, which is solid gameplay and replayability. And maybe, like, some challenge. And so I don't know if I'm not talking about Mass Effect. I don't know what it has, but what I'm thinking about is this focus on storytelling might be a little bit becoming a little bit too important compared to the core things that make games fun, which I think is the gameplay first.
Well, here's the thing though. It's like when you look at the Mass Effect series specifically, when you look at Mass Effect 1 through 3. Mass Effect, I wasn't a fan of 1. I never finished it. Played 2. I count 2 as among one of my favorite games ever. I think it's a fantastic story. Storytelling, gameplay-wise, it's really fucking fun. There's a lot of great elements to it. And 3, I was fine with it. People, obviously had a big fuss about the ending of it and stuff, but I was like, all right, cool, it's a logical conclusion, whatever, it's fine. But that's the thing. When you look at Mass Effect specifically, it has always been one of those franchises that has done storytelling and gameplay to a standard that is much higher than the average. It is much better than the average. It's generally very, very tight in both story and in gameplay, which is something you don't see a lot, because sometimes you get either narrative or you get gameplay stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the problem with the new one, is that the writing is fucking terrible. I had the EA Access thing where you could play the first 10 hours of the game. Yeah. And I live streamed it, actually.
Oh, I remember we talked about that when we first talked about this.
Yeah. And the writing in this game it's fucking terrible. I mean, it is amateurish at best. It is something that you would see on a fan fiction forum. It is really, really that bad. And so, the shit that they're getting over it's warranted because there is a pedigree that was established in the first 3 games that this game just did not live up to.
Yeah.
And so,
Unfortunately, that's the that's the reality, is that's the standard that you now have to match or exceed.
Exactly.
This is just the way it goes. Like that, and this is like for any franchise for any number of reasons. I was disappointed in Street Fighter V. It pissed me off. I don't think it's anywhere nearly as good as the last one, and it's mainly because of the way they handled it, which means they didn't meet the standards of the previous title.
Right.
So, I gotta say this. I think he's mad at me. Nick Goroff is in the chat, and he said. I didn't recite his entire quote. I was talking about Beyond Two Souls because he reminded me of it. But I gotta read his message here. So he said, "What did you guys think of the acting in Beyond Two Souls? I personally thought the actress who played Marcy Darcy in Married with Children and her grandpa were brilliant." So
the acting was fine.
Yeah, it was fine. I think that The Last of Us, I think, is a game that I think would have handled it better because, again, it had a really good story, but there was a fucking game to play. Like it was a fun game to play too. So that's I think what I'm looking for is something that's if you want to tell, like, the Dark Souls series are some of my favorite games, and there is a story there, and you have to like work to figure it out. But if you don't, it's okay because the gameplay is so good. Right. And it's so much fun.
Yeah, it stands on its own.
Yeah, you don't really, so what?
You're not going to be any less for having experienced it, basically.
Yeah, you just got to get good.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So, anyway.
One quick question.
Max, yes.
Isn't BioWare the same company that did Knights of the Old Republic?
It's the same developer.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
It's definitely the same company, yes. Knights of the Old Republic, they did...
I mean, there's different studios, though. I don't know if it was...
that's what I was saying. There are different studios. But
right.
It is the same umbrella company. I did Knights of the Old Republic, and then they did the Kung Fu one, Jade Empire, and...
oh, wow.
They may have... Do you ever played that one?
Oh, I remember it. I remember...
Also.
Oh, well, okay, so you got Jade Empire, you got Knights of the Old Republic, which are two... They're both like in the top 5 games that were probably released around that game generation, arguably. Then you got Dragon Age, which a lot of people love, and you got Mass Effect. All those games can be ranked in like the top 50, 100 games of all time. So when you have a game like Mass Effect Andromeda, which is pretty much... Like, even if you enjoyed it, everybody just looks at it and says, this is below our expectations. You got to step back and reassess what the hell's going on within your company so that this sort of thing doesn't happen again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hopefully their new IP is a new Knights of the Old Republic, because I'd be down for that.
But, that seems to be the popular consensus among theorists on the internet.
Yeah,
is that it is Star Wars related because BioWare is apparently working on some Star Wars properties at the current time.
Yeah.
I believe Amy Hennig is writing them, if I'm not mistaken.
Wizard of Cause says, I want to see a game where Ellen Page plays Michael Cera. I've never seen... Wait. I thought that if Ellen Page took her ponytail and then flipped it to the front of her face and tied it up there, on the back of her head was the face of Michael Cera. I thought that's basically... I thought that was how that... Isn't that how they shot Juno with like a...
No, you're thinking of the first Harry Potter movie.
Didn't they use like 2 cameras and they had to like somehow like CGI like her in it? That's why you never see Ellen Page in all of what's that TV show that Michael Cera was on?
Arrested Development?
Yeah, you never see Ellen Page in Arrested Development because she is in it. She's the back of her body is Michael Cera. That's why Michael Cera looks like the back of some flat ass woman's body. Anyway,
oh my god!
It's like some crazy Siamese beast.
Oh no!
I want to. What's his name? Somebody else said. Oh yeah, Brian play Nier Automata. I actually have plans on doing that, but I got to finish Metal Gear because I want to talk to Max about it. But I have to finish it first, and you could see that he's not happy with me because I haven't finished it yet. And after that, I'm gonna get Nier and also Neo. So confuse myself, but I really want to play that Samurai one by Tecmo. So.
By the way, speaking of Metal Gear, just want to make a shout out to John Saigan, who voiced Solid as Snake. He passed away, I believe, yesterday. So,
R.I.P.
Yeah.
I'd like to salute you, George Sears. Thanks for Raging Against the Machine, but just try not to crash a big Metal Gear into Manhattan next time.
That's right. Also, R.I.P. Powers Booth. We talked about this
Right.
before the show. So,
Yep.
yeah, I loved him in Sin City and Tombstone. Max would say he loved him in Tombstone, but he hasn't seen it yet. So.
Okay, I'm gonna watch Tombstone tonight, and then I'm gonna get back to asking why you haven't finished MGS5
There you go.
That's not fair.
immediately after. Oh no, it's totally fair. Come on.
Okay, so I guess there's nothing else. I will tease you guys. Oh, there is one thing I wanted to tell you. I wanted to tell you this.
Go
okay,
on.
so I was getting the show set up, and I went to Google. I use what I do. I have to go to lots of different web pages that I frequent. I have to go to Feed the Badger. I have to go to Honey Badger Brigade. I have to go to Patreon. I have to go to Mines. And you know, if you use Google or like, use your internet to go to the same websites over and over and over, right? After a while, Google starts to predict the places you want to go. So when you go to the Google main page, you'll get like a block of multiple sort of windows within it that shows some of the
links,
websites
basically.
they're quick links that the places you frequent. So usually the Patreon and all the places I go to are all right there. So I just click on those. So when I went there today while I was getting it set up, there was a tiny link in the bottom underneath. It was like a little sentence at the bottom
Yeah.
underneath the Google logo. Here, I'm going to bring it up right now. And it says, underneath all of the boxes, it says here, see how machine learning is helping us tackle gender bias in movies. This was on the Google search engine window right there. Okay? So I clicked on it, and it took me to a Google article, I guess? I didn't know that Google did articles. Entitled The Women Missing from the Silver Screen and the Technology Used to Find Them. And I won't read the whole thing, but it says there's new research that offers hard data on gender disparities in film. How might the characters we see on screen reflect the roles we play in society? So it goes into like, some study that was done. I think we actually talked about this on one of our shows. Maybe not the Polecat, but it may have been something else. That talked about these sort of, gender disparities. But my reason to bring this up isn't to actually talk about the article itself, but is to remind people that this feminist narrative is not a fringe idea. It's not something that you have to go to feminist websites to find. This is being pushed through Google. This is a mainstream idea. And this is not uncommon, essentially, is what I'm saying. You're going to see this, and it's everywhere. And I saw it on Google. I wasn't even looking for it. I was just going about my business, and it was put there. Now, again, it's possible that Google did this because they were, they know the places I...
It's learning,
go.
Brian.
Yeah, and it's like learning, and it's trying to, like, target me or maybe, send something to me. But maybe you guys should go to your Google, see if you get a recommendation, and see what it says.
I actually did. I got one of those too in a sidebar at some point, and I looked at it and I was just like, I didn't bother reading it, but I have seen that pop up on various websites though. And I don't generally go to a lot of, places looking for that sort of thing. So it's not a usual thing that would be like, oh, well, that kind of fits in with the things I search, because I'm usually looking at toys and video games and movies and dumb shit like that. So it's I'd say it's a pretty good bet that it's everywhere. It's probably a promoted thing. So is what I'm getting at. So there's that.
Yeah, it's possible. It may just depend. Like they may go cycle through different things that they want to show people, and maybe they get paid. Hey, could you point people in this direction? But
Right.
I remember when this study was something that you only found on feminist websites, and we had, I believe we talked about it when it was there, and now it's just a Google thing. So it's sort of like
Right.
gone into the mainstream and
Yeah, it's being promulgated.
Yes. And when you think about that and couple it with that oddly phrased question topic choice for Miss USA, just the fucking doesn't really make sense. I hope it gives you guys an idea of how pervasive,
Right, there's money
these
behind
ideas
this.
come from. Oh, and there's absolutely money behind this.
Yeah. Don't
Yes.
think this isn't just some weird little grassroots thing.
Yes.
There's more going on there for sure.
So that was one thing I just wanted to throw out there. And then lastly, I want to prepare you guys for what we're going to talk about in the after show. There is nothing wrong with going down on someone when they're on their period. And someone from Metro UK named Ellen Scott tries to make the case that you should go down on your girlfriend when she is bleeding from her vagina.
No, you shouldn't.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, unless you're also going to do things like eating poop and drinking urine. No, you shouldn't.
Or you're a
Like
vampire.
if you're into that kind of bodily waste consumption, that's your business. But don't let anybody tell you it's healthy. It's not.
Don't let us know if you're into that sort of thing.
Yeah, we don't really need to hear about it if you are.
Yeah, I don't want to know if you're a bloodhound. It's
no
fine.
judgment as far as the
Bloodhound.
person that you are or anything. But no, don't go telling people that's healthy. It's not healthy.
Yeah.
It's not safe and it's not smart.
Unless you're holding
Find
like a
out what I
blood.
think by becoming a patron.
Yes. So we're gonna get out of here because we're gonna read through the article and the after show. So thanks guys for joining us on the Polecat Cast. Thanks to my co-hosts and thank you for the folks who helped write us up the things.